today we are finally getting into the heroes tier list for Kingdom Rush Battles beta, right? Couple days till global release. Let's not beat around the bush. And originally I was planning to talk in depth about every other character, but I realized I could put it in just a few words, because most of the characters are very simple and I just don't see the tech that can be discussed. Most of them just don't have that. Let's just get into this. The first and the worst character in the game is Elora. So Elora is a ranged hero with terrible, horrific stats. No armor, no damage, very little health. Her abilities suck as well. First ability does a little to no damage to multiple targets. Her second ability summons a minion with no health, no armor, and no damage. Great ability. And her third ability kind of helps her with survivability, because he's very fragile, but I mean, it's random, 35% chance. You're just gonna die to those two hits before this procs. So no, all of her abilities suck. She does no damage, she can't block, her minion cannot block as well. The only benefit to her, I guess, is that she's ranged, but then again, ranged is just a battle style. You need to do damage from range. So she is getting into her own tier, because I don't think any other character even comes close to how bad she is. Let's see why. The second worst character, I think, is Vesper. He's another ranged archer. He has much better stats, more health, more armor, does a lot more damage in melee, does okay damage in range, has a passive that is completely useless. 3% range is nothing. His first ability is actually decent, because he stuns for 3 seconds. Stuns the target for 3 seconds, even though it's kind of random, you know, because, well, you don't control where your abilities lands, who they're hit, but if the biggest enemy comes out first, and you can just stun him under your tower for 3 seconds, so it would land an extra hit or 2, it might really help. This is his best ability. His second ability does okay damage in an AoE, but has very long cooldown, so nah. It might kill off some minor enemies, but the biggest threats is gonna tickle them. And his last ability is another one of those that has long cooldown. You have to be in melee to do that. You just do okay damage with this to a single target. Nah. This is bad. Again, Vesper, ranged character who is much better than Elora in doing with, let's say, just flying threats or threats from ranged, has an okay ability, and all of his other abilities, 2 of his 3 abilities suck. That's why he's tier. The other garbage character is going to be Ingvar. I think he's a bit better than Vesper, because he at least offers some survivability. Vesper and Elora die to, what is it, to the marksman. I should know how this tower is called. Marksman, yeah, no, it's Musketeer Garrison, to the garrison. They die just off cooldown. They respawn, they die. Ingvar is not like that. He's significantly more tanky. He does a lot more damage, but his abilities suck. By the way, his passive also sucks. His first ability does some damage in an AoE with a real long cooldown. It has a decent area of effect, but then again, real long cooldown, and the real threats are not gonna feel it. His second ability, on a very long cooldown, summons 2 units with very little health, very little armor, and virtually no damage. I mean, it's helpful in some situations, but the best value you're gonna get out of this is when they tank a garrison shot or something like that. That's the best you're gonna get. By the way, it kind of messes you up, because if you're fighting with them, like side by side, some AoE stun like from Tesla comes over, or I don't know, Ashbite's ability fires, gets fireball on your head, they're gonna die and you're gonna take a lot of damage. So it kind of doesn't pull aggro or necessarily from your character, but it's somewhat usable against garrisons. And his third ability makes him transform when he loses a certain amount of health, he gets more damage, and that's about it. This just helps him stall a bit more, but not necessarily deal with the problem, you know. Yeah, that's why he sucks. Another character who also sucks is going to be Gerald. I think he's a bit better than Ingvar. He has more armor, which makes him more survivable, and he does more damage. Has a bit less health, right? 3, 4. Yeah, he has significantly less health than Ingvar, but then again, more armor. This synergizes well with his ability to heal himself, which is an okay ability. His other ability buffs himself and allies for 20 of something. Doesn't specify this percentage or not, but he buffs their health and damage. He can output some decent damage with this. And his last ability is a lot better than Elira's because it deflects the incoming damage, you don't just dodge it. And it proceeds for 2 seconds, so you can eat actually a lot of hits if you're lucky with that, and deflect it back, so it's alright. But then again, he's another melee character who is gonna die real quick to some of the slower, tankier enemies that you really want to block. He's rather slow, so you don't want to be... Well, that's what you want to do, but it's really hard to move around the map with him. And when you're moving, you're not attacking, you're not doing anything virtually. So that makes him useless. You don't really want to move a melee character that much around the map because, well, they're going to be useless this way. But he's definitely better than those two, I think. Who's else gonna go there? I think I put the last one in this category is gonna be Grawl. This is the tank. He has a lot of health and a lot of armor. He does okay damage. Probably insignificant, but okay. His first ability does a very little damage, but it's on a low cooldown and it stuns, which is really useful for stalling. It's a decent ability. His second ability, unlike those two, helps him deal with flying enemies. Actually, it's okay. It's an okay kind of tool to do that because it does decent damage. Flying enemies typically don't have that much health if that's not a Thunderbird or a dragon. It has a low cooldown, so you could virtually spam it, again, especially against those enemies because they, well, move really slow. You can fire multiple of those into them. But it's an okay ability. It's an okay ability. And his last ability is one of those insta-kill abilities. On a real long cooldown, but this one is bad because it has real long cooldown, it has low chance, and if you miss, it does bad damage. For that kind of ability, 1200 damage, nah man, nah. Even if this were to do 1500 damage, it still wouldn't be that great because low chance, high cooldown. You know what? Let's get into the next tier where we have characters that are sort of usable. We can get away with using them, but you're doing yourself a disservice. You're putting yourself in a disadvantage if you're using them. Because yeah, this is the meta right now. You know, let's first talk about this guy. Then we move up there. Hexaw. Hexaw is not the tank. He has less health and less armor than Grawl. He has okay damage, and he has another useless passive, but this one at least gives damage, right? So 2% more damage to physical armor enemies is alright, I guess. His first ability is on an okay kind of cooldown. Lasts for 5 seconds. It will do something like 500 damage in an AoE. It's decent. It's decent, I think. By the way, I should have mentioned that much sooner, but I'm considering all characters as they are at level 7. So I obviously don't have every character at level 7, but I'm approximating. I can see that it adds up 11 damage, which would make it 80 and 90. 94 is pretty much 100, so 500 damage with his first ability on the 13-second cooldown. It's not nothing, but it's nothing to brag about. His second ability is a good insta-chance, insta-kill ability. It has 80% chance, unlike Growl's 30, has the same cooldown, and it does more damage if it doesn't insta-kill. Why is that like this? Why? Is there any difference between those? Any? No? Except this one is a straight up upgrade. And his last ability is actually a decent ability. Just look at this straight up upgrade from Vesper's Ricochet shot. It has much lower cooldown, does more damage, and that's it. So that's why I think Hexo is better than all of those characters. He's better than Grawl because he's better at dealing with flying enemies and multiple enemies, and he's just better at doing damage. Because that's what you want your hero to do, to either empower your towers in some way, spoilers, disrupt your opponent, which both of the things neither of those people do, block, or stall, which is basically tanking, and do damage. This guy is decently tanky and does more damage than anybody out of those characters. I wouldn't say he's a better tank than Grawl, but I think he just has better abilities. What can I say? But he's still a melee character. That is gonna die real quick. Who else is going there? I think, yeah, let me put, what's his name? Aegion. I think this is the best melee character in the game. As you can see, we've got no more melee characters left. He is the most tankiest hero in the game. He does very good damage in melee, just like Gerald. And he's got a terrible passive. So his first ability is on a real long cooldown, but it can be useful. It teleports up to 40 units a bit back. It can be useful, but then again, when it really shines is when you're like on an edge of losing and you move out those enemies, or they spawn on one of those bandits map is real close. Just move up there. You have virtually like two or sometimes you don't have the gold to spend on this, so just have one tower hitting an entire spawn of enemies. So this guy is really helpful with it. You just come up there, move them back, and go about your business somewhere else. But it can be detrimental, because when you're fighting someone under towers, when the wave is almost finished, you just need to finish off a couple of those enemies. And he just fucking moves them away from your tower, prolonging the gold increase, the extra gold for your opponent, prolonging this wave killing, which can be real bad. But then again, teleport on an ability like that is alright, I think. His second ability is definitely his best ability on a low cooldown for essentially half the duration, or half the cooldown. It summons a shield that blocks enemy attacks and reflects the damage taken, so it essentially summons another unit that is able to block. I think it's a great stalling ability, because enemies just cannot get past. Enemies just have to hit this. It's surprisingly good at bossing, especially against the bosses that, well, hit it. The Yeti can one-shot it, the guy in the chariot will just run over it and stuff like that, but the ones that hit it, when you summon it under their noses, it can be real useful. You come up to them, you teleport the enemies under them, under the boss, and you summon the shield by the boss, and the boss stops to hit that. So, you know, great ability, real great ability, helps him a lot. And his third ability helps him deal with flying enemies, and again, just straight up an upgrade of Grawl's ability. It does more damage, has the same cooldown, that's it. Yeah, that's why I think he's here. The only two, I think, usable melee characters. I would love to put Grawl here, because he's also a usable melee character, unlike those two. but he's just a downgrade in every way from those two, except he's a bit tankier than this guy, than Hexel. Whatever. Let's get to another. Let me do it like this. I think there is a significant gap between every other character and the top 3 characters. You can kind of see what the characters are, but I'm gonna explain this in depth when we get to this. Why do I think Elora doesn't make the cut? Why doesn't she move through this gap? No. First of all, he's a ranged character with low armor, okay amount of health for a damage dealing unit, and real high for a hero range damage with a decent amount of attack speed. She has the first useful passive that decreases enemies' movement speed. 3% is not much, but then again, it's something. It has an effect, at least. Her biggest downside by far is that she's an epic character. She's really hard to farm dupes off, and really hard to get her to the next level with higher stats. That's her biggest downside. Her first ability, it's okay. It helps her move fast around the map. Don't look at the damage, don't look at the nothing of that. It doesn't help her. You ain't gonna move through the wave anyway, because if there are any ranged characters, you're gonna catch an axe and you're gonna die. So no, but it helps her move around the map. Its move speed, it's great. For ranged characters, it's great because you have to move essentially half the distance. It doesn't say what her attack range is, but you have to move that much less to the target to be useful than, let's say, Aegion would have had to, because he has to move to the melee range. You don't. You can just keep the distance with your attack range and just stand right there and attack him. So this is a decent ability, helps her move around faster. This is her strongest ability, Permafrost, unleashes like a kind of misty, kind of nasty icy mist on actually short of cooldown for 4 seconds, slowing them by 60%. It's really good. 60% is a decent slow, especially for bosses and for those kind of slower enemies. They virtually don't move at all. Don't move at all. It's a great ability because it's an AoE, so for some reason doesn't specify the area effect, but it has a decently large AoE. I love this ability. It's her best ability. It helps with stalling. Like I said in my spells breakdown video, slowing for some enemies is essentially a stun, right? You ain't coming to block them with your body, so you're not fighting them because, well, the enemies that is slowed and not stunned is going to be able to attack, but you're not trading punches with them anyway. So the bigger guys that barely move are just gonna stand still with this for 4 seconds. It's a good ability. Kind of a miniature version of Icy Path. Let me take a sip of coffee just for a moment. And her last ability, Icy Storm, just Ice Storm, I cannot breathe. On a long cooldown does AoE damage, that's about it. The strongest AoE damage ability we've seen so far. That's why she's above everybody else in this regard. She has close to the best stalling. I think it's real close between those two, because this guy, well, he can block some hits. He's not gonna die immediately, but he can block shit. His shield can block shit. But then again, I think Permafrost is a lot safer in this regard, and it could target many units. Unlike this guy who would only be able to do that to 2 units. She has the best stalling out of all of those, and she has the best DPS out of all of those. Because, well, she's ranged, she wouldn't have to get out of her way, and stop fighting and regen her health if you don't put her in danger. Yeah, that's about it. Next character we're gonna talk about is going to be... let's talk about my favorite. Let's talk about her. Let's talk about Dierdre. Why I think Dierdre caps everybody else on this tier except for the, well, of course, legendary heroes. She has a lot more health than Elora. She has actually decent health. She has low armor and actually okay damage in range. She moves kinda slow, but that's alright. Her passive is nonsense. It's bad. It's bad. Even though, honestly, I had some situations where the garrison targets my units and they survive at like 5% health or something like that, and they survive at very low health points, and it helps them be a target for another shot of the enemy towers or whatever. So it's not completely useless. This, by the way, helps with that because you just move up there as well. You move up there, you heal them because you'd rather have them at lower health and heal than have them respawn and don't be a target for enemy towers that will attack your units. So I find this surprisingly useful. Her third ability, Blessed Armor, is actually incredibly good. I haven't noticed this, but for some reason it says 40% buff to physical armor for a few seconds. 40% buff. That's a lie. She's got 20% armor here and gets 40% to that with this. So am I tripping, or would it get like her to 30% armor only? Because it's 40% out of those 20. It's not extra 40 on top of that. Even if it was, it would still make up like 60% physical armor. But I swear to you, I've got a screenshot somewhere. She has a 95% physical damage resistance with this active. This is the only ability in the game that makes a character tank. It makes a character more survivable against the tower shots, which is, by the way, the most devastating thing you could do to the enemy is just kill their hero. This helps her survive that shit. It has a 15-second duration, half the cooldown, and it's a real long time. 15 seconds, real long time. Let's have a look if I can see that. Anyway, it has lower duration than this has of cooldown, but still, maybe this would come up sooner, where the other tower would hit you, would want to hit you as well in those duration. How long did this cooldown? 13 seconds. You could tank 2 Tesla shots with this at 95% physical armor resistance. So it's a real good ability, and it buffs her allies too. It's an insane ability that helps her survive. Just compare this to this garbage, to fucking 30% chance to dodge. What? This is nothing. This is nothing, man, compared to this. But you all know what is her best ability, what is the most defining ability, what I think is the single best ability in the entire game of a hero, is Concentrating. It buffs her towers for 40% damage, 40% for 12 seconds on 9-second cooldown. Yeah, you're right. This has longer duration than cooldown. This is insane. Let me put it like this. The single most powerful entity in the entire game on the map is a tower, right? Towers can kill bosses, towers can kill heroes, towers can make so nothing moves to the exit. They're the single most powerful thing in the game. They can deal with everything. And the best thing you can do as a hero, and the best booster as well, by the way, is Mighty Tower to boost the tower's damage, is empower your tower to do their job more efficient. By the way, this considers spells too, meaning the best spells are the ones that help your tower in some way, like Poly, like Stun, like Snowfield, like Thunder Armor, whatever this is called, Curse, I think it's called Curse. All of those spells all those boosters, they help your tower, and that's why they are the best boosters. By the way, the other best boosters that kind of counter this heavily are the ones that disable your tower. The freezing towers blizzard, what is called, and the polymorph on the tower. Those kind of hard counter this in a way, but on the other hand, it fucks up any tower rotation. It fucks up any placement. It fucks up any tower build, except for, of course, the legendary artillery tower. But this one kind of mitigates that, because if one of two towers that are at your choke point is getting frozen or poly, the other is getting the damage buff, and therefore helps you deal with threats that are coming this way, because it, well, does more damage. That's it. So you kind of make up for the loss of that tower's damage, the other towers that are frozen. You kind of cannot play around if they get 3 of those, if they get both frost, poly, and let's say this shit. An earthquake, you cannot play around it, to be honest, and this is the second most broken thing in the game, but you have to get real lucky. You need 2 boosters and to take a bad artillery tower with you. She's the only support character, so about Dierdre anyway, the only support character in the game that is somewhat survivable, much more survivable than any other non-tank character. More survivable to both the threats that are coming your lane and the ones that come from the opponent's side, like hero abilities that shut down your character, or just then again just shooting your character down. This helps with this, but then again this is that shit is so broken that sometimes your character just doesn't have the time to get up and cast this shit, because they are dying instantly to those. But she's the only character that can kind of mitigate that to herself, at least, and her allies. And she has the most powerful ability in the game. Nothing come close. I'm gonna die debating this, but nothing come close. Let's talk about some other characters. Let's talk about Ice Cold. First legendary hero. He's a flying enemy. Flying hero, which means he cannot block, and he cannot be hit in melee. He can be hit in range, and he can be attacked from your opponent's side with garrison attack or whatever. He has a lot of health though, but he has no armor. He has, well, okay damage and okay attack speed, but he has 2 passives. First is increase in magic tower range. 5% is a lot more than 3%, almost twice as much. It can be felt. I doubt it can reach some break points where you would be able to reach somewhere you wouldn't otherwise, but at least otherwise, I mean, without this, because where I'll have to put Tesla, I wouldn't tell you the name of the map, I have no fucking clue, but so it would be able to hit both these spawns. At level 1 it's really hard to do, because the moment enemy comes up out of the other spawn, not from the gates like coming down the lane, but from the kind of bandit hut, it can hit them once there, just once, when they come up. And you have to make it level 3, so they would be able to consistently threaten those enemies that are coming from that hut. With this, it will kind of help you get there sooner with level 2, let's say, but whatever. And the other ability is Invader's Fatigue, decrease an enemy's movement speed. It's an okay build, like I said. It helps out. The fact that he has 2 of them is making a difference. Okay, let's talk about Icecold's abilities now. His first ability summons a large snowball that goes down the lane, has a real long cooldown, is up for 4 seconds, and does decent damage actually. Because it moves along the path, it can hit a lot of enemies, and it would sum up to a fuck ton of damage, basically. Long cooldown, a lot of damage. His second ability is kind of the same, decent area of effect, long cooldown, a lot of damage, but depends on how many enemies are there. That's why, despite him having a lot of stalling abilities, like the next one we're gonna talk about. Subspells that are able to stun or slow the enemies are also real good with him, because, well, you're gonna slow them under his damaging abilities. And his attacks are also AoE, I think. But he has one cooldown. His third ability is his best ability. Is essentially a better version of Elora's Icy Mist. Decently large AoE. A huge slow, basically a stun at 80% slow for 3 seconds at 12-second cooldown. This is the... I wouldn't say... This is definitely the best stalling ability, right? Nothing come close, because this guy can block one enemy. This one, Elora, can slow many enemies, but her ability is just worse. It lasts for 1 second longer, but has a 20% 20% weaker slow. Yeah, I think it's a real good ability, the best stalling ability in the game. And his last ability, Glacial Storm, it stuns all enemy units for 6 fucking seconds, man. 6 seconds. That's why it's almost unplayable against Ice Cold when you're a melee character. It's fucking unplayable. At least with ranged character, you kind of can keep that in mind and be safe. Stay not in the way of the enemies, but on the other side of the lane, or on the other lane altogether, and attack them with your ranged attacks. But with this shit, man, if you forget about this, or it comes up because you ain't gonna keep 33.4 seconds of cooldown in your head. You ain't gonna watch over this, and you can get stunned in a real bad situation and just gun down. That's it. 2-3 ranged enemies coming down your way, you're blocking the big guy, waiting for him to die under your mage tower. You get stunned for 6 seconds, you're taking 3, 4, 5 attacks from ranged enemies, you're fucking dead. Even as Aegion or whoever else. This is a very annoying ability. Why I think he's better than Dierdre, because, well, he has a stalling ability, unlike her. He has more health, therefore making him more survivable to the other ranged tower attacks. He has, this is real high health, 530, 5300 health. This is a fuck ton of health, man. It's more health than Aegion has. It's a lot of health. It's a fuck ton of health. I think he has the second or third highest, yeah, he has the third highest health pool out of the entire game. Yeah, he probably does, making him really survivable to all of them attacks, but he has no armor, which is kinda sad. That's why I think he's better than the other. He wouldn't output as much damage as her, but it really depends on the boosters you get. If you get this guy in this kind of matchup that we see right here, you just get Poly, you just get Frost, you put up your Dwarven Artillery with Earthquake, the other towers just don't work, and your hero is hitting for thousands and thousands of damage. Also stunning her as well, so you'll be able to make her move her out of danger. And the last guy we're gonna talk about is gonna be Ashbite. I'm kinda torn on who's better, Ashbite or Ice Cold. Ashbite has more health and does more damage. He also has better passives. Spell damage is more effective than fucking range. And artillery tower damage, as probably the strongest tower type in the game, is also more effective than enemy's movement speed decrease. He actually has good passives. He has also a flying enemy, so everything I said regarding this also applies to Ashbite. His abilities, I think, kinda worse. His first ability has a lower cooldown than Ice Cold's, and does damage. That's about it. His second ability is another insta-kill. Has a lower cooldown than usual, a low chance, but then again it does a lot of damage. It's a worse kind of insta-kill than this guy has, but he has to be in the battle. He has to put himself in danger to activate it, unlike Ashbite, who's just kind of there, you know. Flying atop, attacking, and boom, eat somebody or just do a lot of damage to them. His third ability is on a long cooldown. He fires a lot. He fires a bunch of fireballs that explode and do damage in an area. Okay damage, long cooldown, a decent area of effect. Not the craziest ability ever, but it's his third one. He has another one. Oops. And his last ability is Scorching Meteors. Definitely his most powerful ability. I think is more valuable than a stun, because it does damage and lights up the area that does dot damage. If you're for some reason are slowed or just unable to, it sometimes happens when you just hero just doesn't want to move. You click in the wrong place, not directly where your hero is able to move, therefore he doesn't move. You take an extra 100 damage of that, and one of those annoying abilities. This is basically a tower skill that is available turn 1. And this is really fucking annoying, very annoying ability. Who I think is better? I don't know. This guy doesn't have any stalling. Ashbite doesn't have any stalling. He has dragon levels of health pool and damage. Definitely the most damaging character outside of Dierdre. But Dierdre depends on your towers to do damage. He does not. He does it himself. Doesn't have as much stalling as Ice Cold. Ice Cold is more dependent on the stalling itself, for the enemies to be at place and for there to be a lot of enemies to do damage. This guy just kinda doesn't. He fires and it goes through all of the enemies and has lower cooldown than his fireball, or excuse me, than his snowball. Insta-kill is just kind of meh, but it can be really useful. We just always fly over the enemy you would love to get insta-killed, and when it happens, it's a lot of value. It does tens of thousands of damage, basically, this one. And he has a better ability to disrupt your enemy, hitting them with direct damage, essentially. If you pair it up with any tower damage, this is basically an unplayable situation for your opponent. You're getting fucked from turn 1. So yeah, that's the meta, I think. Those three are by far the best characters in the game. It's really hard to play against those two. If Dierdre gets the Mighty Tower bonus, this is essentially unwinnable for most of the builds, let's just say, put like that. The only one that are able to somewhat mitigate that is is Dwarf, with its Earthquake, and to an extent the Dwarven Artillery, kind of always confuse them with each other. With the Dwarven Artillery and Dwarf kind of mitigate that, but then again Glacial Druid as well with his Ice Storm, shit like that, they kind of can play around the other, but the only counter to those guys is just to kill them. That's it. You just kill them. And it's not as easy to do. The only character that can do it a lot easier than everybody else is again Dierdre, because you just buff your towers up with damage. You just buff the garrison's damage. So it does like 1500 damage a shot, and it shoots 3 times, you know? And of course it has an insta-kill chance. Yeah, so that's the tier list. Melee characters suck, except for those two, because they either do decent damage or are great at blocking and stalling. Elora is kind of okay. I've kind of I thought of her more highly before I realized that she's just a downgrade over Ice Cold and doesn't offer anything in particular unique, in particular like Dierdre. She doesn't do enough damage and stuff like that, and all this is pretty much garbage. You are in a massive disadvantage if you're using any of those. Yeah, that's the tier list. Feel free to comment where you disagree with me, and I hope to soon get to the tower tier list, just a couple days before the release. Yeah, and we'll be free to go. This is the meta update for Heroes. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great one.